Hi, everyone. Welcome to the panel today for alternative career pathways in animation, games, and visual effects careers. We're here today with an incredible group of individuals who has worked tirelessly in the state of California to build the first ever registered apprenticeship program to be recognized that by the US Department of Labor for careers in animation, games, and VFX. And so we're going to talk today about the work we've done here in California to help increase diversity and inclusion in the entertainment industry and kind of share our journey and talk about how you might be able to apply this in different places and in your own regions. So we'll start with introductions. My name is Allison Frenzel, and I will be facilitating today. I am the Education Programs Lead for the California Department of Education, supporting arts, media, and entertainment career-focused education programs in the state. And I will toss it over to the other Allison first, Allison Mann, to introduce herself. And while you're introducing yourselves, maybe we'll start with the first question. So tell the audience today about your role in this work, your background, and the context for why our initiative is important to you.
That's a big ask, Allison. Heavy lifting. Allison Mann. I am a talent manager and co-president over at Fourth Wall Management in the animation field. I have been in the animation industry for over 20 years. I know I look like I'm 18, but I swear I've been in it for over 20 years. And I started off as an artist, then I was a creative recruiter for studios like Nickelodeon, Disney, Illumination. My most recent studio job was VP of Creative Strategy over at Sony Pictures Animation. And through my years, and I'm also the co-founder of the BRIC Foundation. How quickly I forget all the other things I do from here to there. We are a nonprofit about creating access points for women and underrepresented groups that want to excel in creative leadership. So through my years of recruiting and working in development as a producer, there's always been a challenge of creating healthy employment pathways into our very privileged industry. And as a recruiter, when I was putting together lists for my hiring managers of different candidates, they would be like, this is a great list of humans, Allison, but where's the diversity? And, I didn't really have the answer, but as I grew my career, I knew that there were a lot of challenges in getting to opportunities in our industry. Some we make ourselves within the studio and the infrastructure itself, and some things the studios have zero control of. So for myself and my outlet and my co-founder, Nicole Hendricks, BRIC was created as an outlet to figure out and solve on these different pathways by uniting thought leaders across nonprofits, studios, education, government, and that is how we partnered with Allison. So our goal is, and I think as a unit, is really to look under the hood. Why are there so many challenges? When in Los Angeles itself, you look in and there's parts that don't even have internet access. So you think, well, if they don't have internet access, how are they going to even be able to do the research to figure out what are those career pathways and everything else? And then you talk to high school teachers and middle school teachers, and they don't really have all the knowledge about what animation, VFX, and gaming is all about. So our job as a collective is really about forming opportunities with this apprentice program and collectively rallying the industry to kind of support this initiative. It's about also working collectively to educate the educators about what it means to have an opportunity in this creative field. And then it's also about educating students and working all together to make sure that people have the knowledge and self-awareness of what it takes to get into the industry and how to get into the industry. So this amazing collective of humans has been working tirelessly, as Allison has said, to make the changes, whether it's on the government side and working with figuring out the creative economy to these opportunities and within education. So really excited to be part of this group, really excited to be part of this panel. And I will kick it to Jinko, who is to my upper left.
Thank you, Allison, Mann, and Allison Frenzel, and thank you, FMX, for hosting us. My name is Jinko Gotoh. I serve as the Vice President of Women in Animation. Also, my daytime job is producing anime features. As both Allison Frenzel and Allison Mann had spoken about, what is really important is how do we democratize education and give opportunities to everyone in the industry, especially given the fact that there's a labor shortage in animation, VFX, and gaming, which I have heard numbers from anywhere from 75,000 to 100,000 people. And I think Arnon, Manor can speak to that as well. So I think, our industry has been looked upon as industry for the privileged. And as you can tell, if you look at the schools, the kids that are going to these schools studying animation, VFX, and gaming are paying, upwards to $100,000, $200,000 for a 4-year program. That is something that is not affordable to everyone, especially if we want to diversify industry. So when Allison Frenzel and Allison Mann approached us at Women in Animation about getting involved in this program, we felt it was very, very necessary and the right thing to do. Women in Animation has always been, the platform has been 50-50 by 2025, which is really for gender justice, but it is really more than just gender justice. It is really about how do we diversify our industry so we can diversify our storytelling, because without the people behind the scenes that are diversified, we will never diversify our storytelling. So with that, I'm going to pass this to Arnon.
Thank you, Jinko, and thank you, Allison, and both Allisons, Allison M and Allison F, and of course FMX. My name is Arnon Manor. I always try and kind of figure out how do I explain what I do. My day job is I'm Vice President of Visual Effects at Sony Pictures Entertainment on the feature side. I also am a board member of the Visual Effects Society, which is the kind of preeminent non-guild honorary society for visual effects professionals around the world. And I started and chair the education committee of the Visual Effects Society. The mandate that we kind of gave ourselves through the Visual Effects Society and the education committee was in fact to bring in what we call underrepresented, that's a kind of a broad term, underrepresented people into the industry from non-traditional avenues. Speaking to what Jinko was saying, this is not going to, 4-year, $200,000 education, but to go to schools, community colleges, high schools, and to create programs for people that, would be considered, a non-traditional avenue. For me personally, in my day job as an executive, and similar to Allison, I came through the ranks as an artist. So I started off being a CG artist back in Europe a long time ago, and then kind of made my way up through producing and just kind of meandered through my career, and for the last 10 plus years I've been a studio executive. And one of the things that kind of was very apparent over the last few years was that in my job at hiring, especially top level visual effects producers and supervisors, that it was very, very heavily skewed towards white men. And that, is very apparent. And then the question really becomes, okay, so when we start kind of looking and digging under the hood and saying, okay, so where are that next level people that are supposed to come through, you realize that there aren't enough, and the avenues for progress are not there. And that's when I decided, kind of wanting to engage with the Visual Effects Society, and started the education committee so we can start truly at the grassroots level and create opportunities for middle schools and high schools and community colleges, and kind of breaking the barrier, the entrance barrier into the industry as a whole, which used to be a 4-year education, and sometimes more. I mean, I myself am kind of the old school where you went and you had a master's, a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And the question that we all asked ourselves was, is that really necessary? And the short answer is no. As long as, you know, people have the right education, it doesn't have to be the formal education that we're all used to. That also means educating educators, educating recruiters, educating parents, that there is a very valid career in our fields, animation, visual effects, and gaming, which is very well paid, has opportunities, and I think that's kind of why we're all here and how we got together with a group of, you know, remarkable organizations and people. So I'm very, very happy to be part of this. And I'm going to send it over to Stephen Isaacs. Apologies.
Thanks, Arnon. It's great to be here. Yeah, thanks to everybody, and thanks for having us at the event. So my name is Steve Isaacs. I'm the Education Program Manager at Epic Games, and I've been in this position for a little over a year. And my primary role is to support educators and students in providing resources as well as tools for creativity and training for educators to help onboard schools to adopting our products. And early on when I started, I was introduced to Jinko by email, you know, through her involvement with Women in Animation and a grant that they received. And I don't know exactly what happened next, but somehow I ended up on a phone call with this whole group and many other, you know, very impressive, passionate people that were out to make a difference in education, which is what I'm very excited about. And, you know, it was just such a perfect fit. And as you heard from everybody already, I mean, you know, at the core of this group is a passion for providing education and opportunities for students that otherwise might not have had them. And, you know, you know, the alternate pathway model and the apprenticeship program and everything that this group is doing is providing those opportunities. So my background is I was a classroom teacher for 28 years and, you know, was always working with, you know, with industry in that it was important to me to connect, you know, when it came to, you know, influencing product development for my students and things like that, which is what got me involved with Epic. And then with this group, it fit so in line with our goals because we want to provide training for teachers. The program that Allison and this whole community has developed is, you know, geared towards starting with that education to get kids these skills in high school, you know, with the opportunity to follow that they, whether or not they're planning on a 4-year college experience, that they can actually leave high school with these skills that are in high demand. The demand for skills interactive 3D, as we know, are skyrocketing. I mean, I'm sure everybody on this call is, you know, like Arnon and Jinko and Alison are probably always looking to fill positions because there's a need, but let's, you know, give opportunity to people that otherwise, you know, didn't always have that. So that's at the core of this. And we're working, you know, in an area, you know, well, especially what we've been doing so far, some of the training and things we've been doing in LA is a perfect spot for what we're doing and great communities to work with. In fact, I'll end on the note that it was really exciting after all of our year of you know, kind of planning and everything. We just had our first 2 full days of a teacher training this past weekend in Los Angeles with about 40 teachers that'll be bringing this program into the schools, and I'll tell you, they were excited and passionate, and that's what this is all about. So now we can really move the needle.
Thanks, Steve. And for the audience, I just want to give a little context to what we've built here. We kind of introduced it quickly, but what Steve's mentioning is really instrumental in getting this on its feet. So the recipe in California and in the United States for what we call registered apprenticeship is learning that takes place in a classroom plus on-the-job training. So as Arnon was talking about, historically, the pathway to careers was go to high school, maybe go to a four-year college, maybe get even a graduate level degree before you could even consider being hired in some of these studios. But there's been several studios that have removed the degree as a barrier to entry. The challenge is we have to match that high quality training that happens in those expensive art schools in our free and public education system in order to make true equity happen. So you can't just remove the barriers, you're still completely ignoring a whole population of people who don't even know those jobs exist because you haven't mapped that education into public schools. So what we spent a year developing here with a large advisory, I think over 80 industry professionals, is a program that we can map into public schools for high school students to learn the skills and competencies they need to develop portfolios that show they are industry ready for junior level work in a variety of jobs in the industry. So we worked with this team. We figured out where the low barrier, high need jobs are, and some of those jobs that might have higher barriers, but they're hard to fill. And we built and customized an education program, which we're still working on, to map into public schools. So part of this work is around the teacher training that Steve is just talking about. Part of this work is about classroom work-based learning and student experiences that are connected to real life workplace experiences. And then most importantly, employers, our employer partners who are just committed to piloting this and figuring out how does on-the-job training look in a production in games, animation, and visual effects workplace spaces, even virtual. So that's really what we're doing is we're changing the entry point to the industry. We're saying, yes, you can go to college. Awesome. Good for you to be able to do that. And if that's not in your path, here's another way you can earn while learning and become just as skilled in that trade or craft. So that's where this program, right now we're in the process of moving to phase 2, which is identifying, creating a standardized portfolio certification protocol. So every single student graduating from these programs knows what to put in their portfolios for the types of jobs that they want to go after. Like that doesn't exist right now, right? So it's really truly collaborative. And as Allison Mann was saying, it's really about pulling leaders in the industry who care about education to inform this work and making sure we listen to them, and then also having teachers inform the work from the education side. So I think one of the components we haven't talked about yet, and so that's the program in an overview. And as I was going to toss it to Al, but I'll let her deal with a little. One of the things, there's a couple different things I want to chat about, so I'll come back to you, Al. And one of them is examples of what work-based learning can look like in high school settings with students, because some people dismiss that as an age group that's just not ready for that, right? But Jinko, your work right now and thinking about the Hollywood High project, and Arnon, your work with Cops and Robbers, and Al, your work with the summer internship programs, and Steve, you and I both came from classroom environments, so maybe we can think a little bit about how we at the teacher side facilitated this. But I would love for the three of you to kind of talk about how that industry push into education classrooms is an essential part of this for some of our partners that might want to figure out, like, how do we do this? How do we work with kids, you know? So why don't we start with you, Jinko, and talk a little bit about the Hollywood High, and then we'll go to Al and then Arnon.
Well, first of all, the reason that I'm part of this team is because BRIC had connected me with Hollywood High about almost 2 years ago. And they had reached out and said, could you go out and speak with Hollywood High School? And I was delighted to speak with Hollywood, with the high school students, because I love mentoring, because I learned so much from my mentees. and having mentored college students, I was very curious to hear what high school students had to say. Because what's very interesting about college students that we learned over the course of many years, trying to understand why there are barriers for women to get into the workplace, was that a lot of women felt by the time they were in school that because even despite the fact that 60%, 70% of the student body are women, that women still felt that they didn't belong in school. And so therefore that prohibited them, or that hindered them from wanting to go into industry. So we realized that if we're going to really change our industry, we've got to get to a younger group. So when BRIC Foundation reached out, I was very delighted to go and speak with the Hollywood High, and you could see that there was excitement there. But you can also see that the high school is made up of kids that are not going to be, don't have the financial resources to go to a 4-year program. So that's when we realized, how do we fix that problem, right? You have a group of kids that are so enthusiastic, wanting to learn, wanting to be in the business, but they don't have the resources. So this alternative pathway became a solution for that. And with the EPIC grant that Women in Animation received, we're able to take that grant money and really help educate the educators so that they can teach how to use Unreal, which is, free. Just download it, right? Because this is the other problem that we have, is that if you're not privileged, not only can you not study by going to these higher education, you don't even have the resources to have access to the tool set. And so it really became about how do we democratize our industry. And Hollywood High School became a really great platform for us to really try to use it as a pilot to see how we can take Unreal, give it to teachers, educate the teachers so that they can educate their students to be able to use these tools.
Thank you, Jinko. And Al, you want to piggyback on that? Are you ready? I know you got some littles there that want to be in.
I'm going to do my best.
Allison has some visitors.
Thank you. I not only do I work full time, but I'm a mom of twin 6-year-olds. So you may see them pop in and out. It's their bedtime. So for BRIC, a couple years ago, we formed a internship program. We did it with 2 districts in Los Angeles last summer, and it was really successful. And the way that we set it up, it was with middle school and high school students, and they got to learn how to pitch a project, specifically TV or film. And what we did is we set up not only for them to learn about the pitch process and what it takes to present yourself, but we brought in different speakers from the studios to different creators, some that went to school, some that didn't go to school, to show that you can have various pathways into our industry. And then we also had colleges, different colleges talk to them, and different types of schools. So we had state schools, we had junior colleges, we had art schools, we had online schools, just again to show and myth bust all of the different opportunities in order to get to where you want to be. And it was really successful. We did summer camps that they were 3 weeks. We did some that were 6 weeks, and we were able to kind of break it down so they were able to have the opportunity. And we actually picked up one of the pitches to shop and further develop. And this is an animated docu series that could really be impactful. But I think it's about, again, getting in there and showcasing and giving them the tools and showing that they can tell these stories. Like, even on a development standpoint, the executives learned a lot from the kiddos as well, the students, that it was they were talking about the type of content that they want to see, the students want to see, and it's not a lot of stuff that we're not making. So I think it was really beneficial for like everybody to come together. The students learned a lot about an industry they knew little about. A lot of them were like, well, I can't draw. I don't think I should be in this summer camp. So we spoke a lot about like, you don't have to be an artist. There's lots of different roles. You can be a creator, you can be a writer, you don't have to draw in our industry. So we're going to continue the summer camp. We're going to expand it out to pitching for like games and different kind of areas of storytelling, not just the linear ways that we think of it in TV and film, and continue having amazing speakers that can open up minds and give them an idea of where they can go. Arnon.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, and just before I talk about the question that Allison, you asked me about, I do want to just piggyback on what you said, Allison Mann, about which is, I think, a very important point, that what we're trying to create here is not just an artist talent pool. It's actually professionals across all the needs of animation, gaming, and visual effects, and that is, production needs, technical needs, engineering potentially, and of course art. Everybody thinks that in order to be in these industries, you have to know how to draw, just to, similar to what Allison said. And the reality is, no. Of course, we know that you don't, and there's other professions that are just as needed as artists, and they're not pushed as hard, especially in schools, because again, the notion is that you need to be an artist in order to get into the creative industry. And so even kind of debunking that myth is part of what we want to try and do, and going into a classroom and saying, if there's a class of, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 kids, each one of those kids, depending on whatever their proficiency or interest is, whether it's math or whether it's science or whether it's art or other, can actually get a job in our industries, and giving them those tool sets. So so that's one thing I think is very important that we are, just to point out. But going off your question, Allison, about cops and robbers, and even a project that I'm doing now. So a couple of years ago, I created and produced and directed an animated short, and one of the ideas that I had to do that was to, again, using the term that Jinko uses, democratize it. So how to get this done, this very specific project, in a way that also educates, because the education aspect was also part of the subject matter, but it was also very important that it becomes part of the creation as well. And part of it was to go to schools, and part of it was to find people online on Instagram, people that have never done anything like this before, animate, and actually giving them the tools, teaching them through the process, and actually treating them in a professional manner. A lot of it is just making sure that you're not patronizing these people, but you're actually teaching them and creating with them and giving the opportunity for them to shine. One of them was a high school that I had a great relationship with. They created a great segment, and now that high school is creating several animated segments for another project that I'm doing. And I was just on the phone with them earlier this week, and truly working with them is similar. And I mentioned this to the students, and they're all beaming, and they're all high school students. The work that they're doing is equal to any of the professional work and professional environment that I do in my day job. The level of expertise, the questions, the motivation, and each one of those kids, the amount of can actually leave their high school, in my view, and actually get a job in our industry if they so desire. And that's to do with this specific school and the program that they have. But that's what we want to try and create, those kind of opportunities. And just as a last bit, again, as a Sony employee, you know, my kind of catchphrase is always, you know, our studio is in Culver City, and we of course make the Spider-Man movies, and there's kids that live a mile or two or three around Culver City, and they might as well be a million miles away because they have no idea that actually the opportunities that they might have at the studio, and we want to be able to create those opportunities for them. So if they want to work on the Spider-Man movies, they can, and make it very easy and accessible to them. But that's the onus is on us to actually give the time not only to educate, but actually um, to give professional advice. I think is really important, to treat them like you'd be treating any other professional setting. So, yeah.
Thank you, Arnon. And I think you made some excellent points. One of the things you mentioned here is the fact that high school kids are way more capable of things than we think often. I think Steve and I can both attest to that. And I taught for 15 years. Steve taught for way more than that. But there were some kids that came through my program that I was like, I have nothing really left to teach you. Like, you are ready for the world. And then there are some that need a lot more support and mentoring. And so one of the things that we want to do is make sure all of the components are in place. As Steve mentioned earlier, teacher training being a huge component of this. But another huge component is mentorship and buy-in from industry partners who want to be mentors. That's a huge thing that we're going to be pulling together, is a pool of industry mentors for young people who want careers in this space. Another way that people can participate is by doing what Allison had just discussed. Be a masterclass instructor through the BRIC Creative Academies. Review student portfolios. Donate some of your time to look through and give feedback to students. That 1 hour of your life can make so much difference in a young person's life. So I keep going back to this cliche, it takes a village. It really, in this effort to really change this industry and others across the entertainment industry, because in the state of California, we're looking at this across all arts, media, and entertainment career pathways, whether that's in filmmaking and live action, whether that's in live event production and concerts. We are hoping to create a pipeline initiative or a pathways initiative that leads to work for the young people that are ready. So as a teacher of young people for your whole career, Steve, any final thoughts on that front? We're running up against our time here, but I wanted to toss it to you for...
Yeah, I'll just say that I'm very happy to hear what I heard when I was in the classroom, and it's not always the case, and I think we need more of it, but my goal was to create a studio-like environment in my classroom. And to the points that I heard from Arnon, Allison, and Jinko, what we were demonstrating there was that there are different roles, and kids can find their passion and figure out what area that might fit into. So if that's graphic design or animation or sound engineering, or coding, like when I told people I taught game design, they often thought I meant I taught like a coding class. And I was very clear that it was, that anybody could participate and find their way in this. And I think we need to create more environments, like that just give kids that industry feel. And when we can bring industry professionals to the classroom as mentors as well, I mean, then we really are accomplishing something. So I love what you brought up, Allison, about that, that hour of your life. I get an opportunity often now to judge student games and things, and I love to do it. And I didn't, I wasn't thinking of it in the fact that it, really is, giving back, but that's what, we can all do. So I really appreciate that.
Excellent. Al, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. What I love about this group is we're a bunch of doers, right? Like, we're action orientated, and we see a challenge and we try to fix it, and we're taking the time. It's a lot of sweat equity in order to make change, and it won't happen overnight, as we've seen, but we need to put in the time. And I know time is so hard and it's so valuable. And so to both of your points, it's like, if we, for those that are in the industry and they say they want to see change, I encourage and invite to participate in order to make change. And we're not asking for money. Sometimes we ask for some money, but we're really looking for your time and your energy to connect with these kids, to take the time to see why these challenges exist, and don't be so disconnected from the why, to why the recruiters don't have the candidates you so desire to see. So get in there, look under the hood with us, help create real change in real time. Like, we're creating that platform. So I would encourage you just to volunteer that 1 hour if you have that ability to do so.
And I want to toss it to you, Jinko, because I think people can get involved in a variety of ways: contacting the BRIC Foundation, volunteering to be a mentor with women in animation, or the Visual Effects Society. And, you know, I think a big part of this is also about dispelling the mythology around that there's no jobs for artists, because we all know that's not true. And that old mentality has prevented us from really helping develop a skilled workforce, because the energy is getting put into other sectors and training in other sectors because there's mythology around that it's not a real job. And so we also, part of this work is really changing that, showing the families that this is really actually quite good work, in especially in the sectors that are blowing up right now, like virtual production and games and animation and visual effects. So we would love to definitely involve anybody who wants to be involved. And I know Arnon, Jinko and Arnon want to say some final words here, so I'm going to toss it to them. Jinko, you first, you're muted.
Thanks, Allison. Just echoing what everyone has said tonight. The demand is here. It's not no longer about, creating a demand, but there is a shortage of supply. As we said earlier, there are so many jobs globally. It's not just a problem in California, but it is a global global problem that we all need to solve. So we hope what we shared with you today will hopefully, get other people involved in wanting to create alternative pathways, because the demand is there, and there are kids who want to be in the industry, and we need to demystify to the schools, to the parents, to the children and the kids, that there's truly an opportunity where people can make a very good living doing this work. So thank you.
Yeah, and just to add, actually, Jinko, it's kind of what I wanted to add as well, that we happen to all of us be living in, California, but what we've always said that we wanted to create a pilot program that can then be replicated worldwide, because the issue is worldwide, and we are a worldwide industry. That's kind of the cool thing about it, and especially with, the last couple of years, knowing how we can do things virtually. And you can be anywhere in the world and actually volunteer, mentor, be part of this. So certainly, I'm not sure what the capabilities are here on this panel, but reach out to us. I'm sure there's emails or somehow, we want to hear from you. And if you have questions about your specific region that you live in or country, then certainly you can reach out to one of us, and we'd love to, we call it kind of open source. We'd love to give you what we've done. And so we can then, you can take that further and create it, in your local country or region or wherever that might be. I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Arnon. Yes, the door is open. So again, thank you for having us today or tonight. I don't know what time it is, but we appreciate the opportunity to share our work here in California and engage more with the global audience. So have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.